Hi, Room 41. It's time for another math lesson. Our lesson for today is we will draw and classify triangles by their angles. So we will be looking at the angles within triangles. Two questions to think about today while you're working. How can I connect my new learning from this lesson to my previous knowledge of angles, which we learned about last week? And number two, what important information do I need for me to understand the angles on triangles? I'm going to be giving you some important information today in the lesson. So listen for that important information so that you learn how to understand the angles in a triangle. Let's brainstorm. Can you name any words that you can think of that begin with the prefix tri? T-R-I. I know the first thing you think of, since this is a lesson on triangles, you are thinking of triangles. Can you think of other words that begin with the prefix tri? Here are two of mine. I thought of the word trio, and I thought of the word trilogy. And then I thought tricycle and triangle. And then I thought tripod and triceratops. So, what do all these words have in common? In other words, what does the prefix tri mean? If I'm talking about a trilogy or a trio or a tricycle or a triangle, they all have to do with the number 3. So a triangle is a three-sided shape that has 3 angles. Let's go on. All right, you need a piece of paper and a pencil, or you could have a dry erase board with a marker and an eraser, and you're going to be drawing the following angles. Now I know it says group 1, group 2, and group 3 on the slide, but that's if we were at school. So at home, will you just take out a piece of paper and a pencil, and I want you to draw angles, not triangles. I want you to draw these 3 angles. First, I want you to draw a right angle. Then on the same paper, will you draw an acute angle? Again, not triangles. And the third one, will you draw an obtuse angle? Take a look at what I did. Here's how I set mine up. Now, you can see the first one I drew is a right angle. And I'm not sure if we talked about it much last week, but remember, a right angle, most people in math will put a square there to show that it is right angles, that it creates a right angle, because you could leave that square off of there and people are like, is that a 90-degree angle exactly? Or could it be 91 or 92 degrees, which would make it obtuse? Or could it be like one less, 89 degrees? So to make sure everybody understands that it is a right angle, you put the symbol there so everybody knows I just drew a right angle. And then I drew an acute angle, and then I drew an obtuse angle. So what's the differences among the angles? Well, a right angle we know is 90 degrees. An acute angle is anything less than 90 degrees. And an obtuse angle is any angle bigger than 90 degrees. Now, will you go ahead and close your shape into a triangle, like I'm doing? And we have 3 triangles that now have the name of their angle in them. So a right triangle has a right angle in it. An acute angle has an acute angle in it. An obtuse triangle has an obtuse angle in it. Now, on your triangles now, will you put a letter at each of the vertices or just one of the vertices? And that's how you could name your triangle. So I could put triangle A, B, C. For my acute angle, I could call it triangle D, E, F. For my obtuse triangle, I could call it G, H, and I. And that's how you would label and name your triangles. All right, now here's the important information for today. Remember to name a triangle by its angles. So look at all the angles in the triangle to make your decision. Right triangles and obtuse triangles have acute angles. They do. But triangles are named by their largest angles. Let me read that again. Triangles are named by their largest angles. In fact, every triangle is going to have two acute angles. But let's look at our three triangles that I drew on this page. An acute triangle, every angle on that triangle is acute. So that one is an acute triangle. But then, look at the second one. That's a right triangle. We see the right angle in it, but we also see two acute angles. But remember, we're going to name it by its biggest angle. Which is bigger, an acute angle or a right angle? A right angle is the biggest angle there, so we're calling that triangle a right triangle. An obtuse triangle is 90 degrees or more, and so we have an obtuse triangle. Look, we definitely have two acute angles, but remember, we're naming it by its largest angle. So let's go back and review. An acute triangle, the first one on the page, has three acute angles. The largest angle on that triangle is an acute angle. The middle one is another shape of a triangle. It has a right angle in it and two acute angles. We're going to name that triangle for its biggest angle, which is a right angle. And the last triangle is an obtuse triangle. It is the biggest angle in that triangle. Yes, there are two acute angles in it, but we name it by its largest angle, which is the obtuse angle. All right, so important information on this page. You really need to put this in your memory bank. Remember, triangles are named by their largest angles. But don't let that confuse you. Every triangle is going to have two acute angles in it. It's impossible to make a triangle that doesn't have two acute angles in it. But we'll call the triangle by its biggest angle. So we'll call the acute triangle acute because that is the biggest angle in there. Right is the biggest angle in the second triangle, and obtuse is the biggest angle in the third triangle. All right, that's a lot of learning on that page. All right, let's take a look at some triangles. We have 9 of them to look at. Take a look at number 4. This is right out of your student activity book that's at school. Number 4 starts, and what we're supposed to do on this page is we're supposed to name the triangle by its angles. And they ask us to explain our thinking in it. Again, I wish we were together, that we could turn and talk, but for now, I need your brain turned on. And if you have somebody sitting there with you, talk with them about it. That first triangle, what's the biggest angle in that first triangle? All I see are an acute angle, an acute angle, and an acute angle. So that is an acute triangle. Let's go on to number 5. Number 5 shows us that we have a right angle. And that looks like it's the biggest angle in that triangle. So that one is called a right triangle. Number 6. Acute angle at the bottom, acute angle at the bottom, definitely an acute angle at the top. So the biggest angle on that triangle is an acute angle. So that is an acute triangle. All right, I'm going to give you some time to think about number 7. Look at all 3 angles. Remember, a triangle has 3 angles. Look at all 3 of them. 2 of them are definitely acute. 1 of them is bigger than acute. So is that an acute triangle, a right triangle, or obtuse? Hopefully you said obtuse. Let's go on to number 8. Again, we have the symbol for a right angle. And we have 2 acute angles on the other vertices. So those are smaller than a right. The right angle is the biggest angle in that triangle, so it is a right triangle. Number 9. I see 2 acute angles. What's the other angle? They're not giving me the symbol to say that it's right. And it's definitely not acute, so that must be another obtuse triangle. Number 10. I'm letting you think. That is acute. That's an acute triangle. Number 11. I'll let you think. Yes, that is obtuse. 2 acute angles and 1 obtuse, so we name it for its biggest angle, so that is an obtuse triangle. And number 12. I see an acute, and an acute angle. So that is an acute triangle. All right, that is our lesson for today. What I'm going to have you do next is you're going to get onto MobyMax. I gave you one quick assignment on there, seeing if you can identify and classify triangles by their angles. So you'll get onto MobyMax. I think there are 9 questions for you to answer. Some of them will ask you to sort triangles into 2 different boxes. Some of them will ask you to identify what type of a triangle it is. Your choices are acute, right, and obtuse. So your big learning from today, every triangle has 2 acute angles in it. It's that third angle that we're looking at. That third angle, is it also acute? Then it's an acute triangle. If that third angle is a right angle, we call that a right triangle. And if that third angle is an obtuse angle, then we call that triangle an obtuse triangle. All right, so you are done with my lesson for today. I want you to head over to MobyMax, get on there and answer those 9 questions for me. I'll be checking them.